go back to the year 1989. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to act like I really remember that year, because it kind of was the year I was born, so I can't say I remember it too well. But anyway, I think I can safely say that Nintendo was definitely one of the more popular consoles of the time. And we definitely loved their games, but it was kind of a shame because we couldn't really take them around with us. They weren't really portable. They weren't exactly the most portable cartridges either. But that all changed in that year, because we got these cartridges. Okay, well this is nice, but we still need something to play them on. Never fear, it's the Game Boy! Yes, the famous Nintendo brick to save all our lives from having to play our video games on a TV. Now, there were other portable consoles of the time, like the Atari Lynx, and there were other ones that were to come out, like the Nomad and the Game Gear from Sega. But I think the Game Boy is one that most people remember, that's for sure. So it's got a very thick form factor, of course. Very simple button layout. Simple small screen with its, what I like to call pea soup green display. Cartridge slot, power switch, volume control, link cable slot. But it definitely paved the way for portable video gaming, that's for sure. I'll go ahead and stick Mega Man in there, so you can get an idea what the screen looks like. Ding! We'll do Cut Man. This game is hard, by the way. I'm gonna just add that in there. This music might sound crappy to you now, but back in the day, this was cutting edge. Okay, I'm done dying. Okay, so that was the original Game Boy for you. Then comes 1996. Gamers want a more slimmer design. The Game Boy Pocket came out. Looks to be about 2/3 the size of the original Game Boy. Not even as tall either. So we'll just stick the brick aside. Definitely lighter too. Instead of 4 AA's like the original Game Boy, only takes 2 AA's. And the screen was actually much improved too. No backlight yet, but it did have true black and white display, and the screen in comparison is actually a little bit bigger. This particular one I have has some scan lines broken, unfortunately. Volume. Oh, that is the loudest volume. Okay, so you can see the speaker on the Game Boy Pocket was not as powerful, but the screen was definitely much better quality, a lot sharper. And of course the Game Boy Pocket was nice, but something would have been nice so that maybe we can, play in the dark. Then comes the Game Boy Light. But there was a catch, only to Japan users. In Japan, only about 12,000 of these were ever released. Why? Well, mostly because the Game Boy Color was on its way. Nintendo didn't think they wanted the same Game Boy. When I say they, I mean America. Nintendo didn't think anyone else wanted a similar Game Boy with just a backlight edition. No, they wanted the color. So this only stayed within Japan, and like I said, only about 12,000 were made. So you can have it on without the backlight if you'd like. Then the screen's pretty much the same as the Game Boy Pocket. Oh, by the way, this takes 2 AA's instead of AA's. So the screen's exactly the same, like the Pocket with the light off. But if we turn the light on, we can play in the dark now. Wow! I love that. Now, the camera's not adjusted to the white balance, but trust me, in real life, the screen is much greener than that. Take my word for it. So the Game Boy Light came and went in Japan, unfortunately. I think it could have had a little bit more potential. But now the gamers wanted color. So in 1998, my first personal Game Boy, the Game Boy Color, had a few additions, like an infrared port on the top for some. I remember Super Mario Brothers, you can actually trade high scores back and forth. Pokemon Pinball, you could do that too. I even had a Bomberman game where you access the bonus stage by pointing a TV remote at it and pushing a button on the remote. That was cool, and it's all of a sudden like, jam! You're in a bonus area. So again, 2 AA's. I got the see-through one because see-through is the shiznick. Do people still say shiznick? I don't know. I think like 3 years ago they did. But of course, we wanted it for the color. Wow. Did you see that logo was in color? It's still black and white. It's got full colors. Do my hands dare hold this? Am I worthy? This is color. Pikachu's coming at me in color. Oh no, he's coming towards me. He's surfing. Oh no, he's running towards me. No, he's flying. Whee! Hey, Pikachu, what are you doing? Wait. Oh, Pikachu, what are you doing? Pikachu! Damn it, Pikachu. And of course, the Game Boy Color had its exclusive Game Boy Color games like Kirby Tilt and Tumble. Kirby Tilt and Tumble is definitely a fun game, but it's a hard game to play on the Game Boy Color. Much easier to play on something like the SP. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, because the SP, it's upside down. So, you kind of have to tilt, you do have to tilt the game to play, but at the same time, you're making sure you're staying under a light source. Not very easy. Alright, so now 3 years after that, in 2001, the Game Boy Advance comes out, where we get pretty much what we felt like was 3D graphics. Oh, step back for a second. I don't think the Game Boy Color was the first handheld with color. It wasn't. The Game Gear and the Nomad right before that from Sega. I'm just saying that the Game Boy Color is the one that most people remember by far. Okay, anyway, back to the Game Boy Advance. 32-bit graphics as opposed to 8-bit. And the cartridges, let me show you. Cartridges were an extreme difference. Now, we thought these were small back in the day. But then these came out, which were like half the size. Wow. Okay, yeah, I know, it's a Game Boy Advance flash cart. It's the same size, so don't worry. Now, when I first got my Game Boy Advance, my first game was Super Mario Advance. I took it out of the box. I took the game out of the box, and I was like, I almost crapped my pants. I'm like, wait a minute, how did they even fit the game in there? The games are better in a cartridge half the size? Now that's just preposterous. But nope, it was true. Game cartridges were half the size. 2 new buttons were added. Again, takes 2 AA's. Wider screen. And, as you can obviously see, the new horizontal form factor. They took the vertical form factor everyone was used to, turned it on its side, put the screen in the middle, and there you go, the Game Boy Advance. Now, 2 more years later, the year 2003, the square guy comes out, the Game Boy Advance SP, with the folding clamshell design to keep the screen nice and safe. And this had a backlight. I have the older Game Boy Advance SP. The one with 2 different brightness settings came out, I think, in 04 or 05. Whichever one's right, I'll put it in the annotations below. But the button here on mine controls it on and off. And the shoulder buttons are a little bit smaller. Oh, another major introduction. It actually has a rechargeable battery, and it comes with a charger, of course. You can tell I've used it so much, I've actually sweat off the serial number. But yeah, every Game Boy they came out with definitely had some major changes, that is for sure. Now we're going to skip past the year 2004. That's the year when the DS came out, because the DS is not a Game Boy. Just because it has a Game Boy Advance slot in it does not mean it's a Game Boy. Just because the Wii plays GameCube games does not make the Wii a GameCube. Right then. So the year 2005, we've got the Game Boy Advance Micro. Now this is where things really get portable. I mean, this is probably about the size of an NES controller. The shoulder buttons, they press on the inside because it's small. You can't really be pressing them on the outside without getting like carpal tunnel in your index finger or something. Still built-in rechargeable battery. The Game Boy Advance games are about half the size of the system. Stick that in there. Then the power switch is on the bottom. Now you can see these flashcards sometimes have trouble being read by the Game Boys. Anyway, on the Game Boy Micro, the volume control was a rocker switch, like on a cell phone, whereas on the SP it was a slider. And on the Game Boys before that, it was merely just a dial. Now, it's a small speaker, so the volume doesn't go up too high. But it also has very good brightness control, where you can hold down the L button, you press the volume control, now it's on the lowest brightness right now. So that's brightness 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it goes pretty bright. And I don't think I ever played on anything above 3, really. It's kind of just overkill at that point. But that is the entire Game Boy line in 10 minutes. Remake. And thank you very much for watching.